it's Ellie. Today I'm going to share with you guys how J.R.R. Tolkien's books have affected normal people from my life today. I'm going to interview my grandpa, my mom, and I'm going to do a little short section on myself for you to find out what impact J.R.R. Tolkien has made on citizens today.
Well, I love this opportunity to talk to you anyway. It's the first time we've ever really had a chance to sit down and really talk about something like this. But you asked me how J.R.R. Tolkien influenced my life, and I was thinking about that since you asked yesterday. And he and C.S. Lewis together have been very, very big influences, probably the top 5 people that influenced my life as a Christian and as a person. And the main reason is that the 3 things about both of them that stimulate my study of them and my and how it's benefited me. One is that they were intellectuals. And what I mean by that is that they came first to things through the mind, through the intellect. They didn't come through feelings necessarily, but they came through objective truth. And they started with literature, looking at old literature and new literature and looking at it and sifting through it and understanding what it was saying and the word structures and all that, and understanding through the intellectual side of life. They were thinkers. They were thoughtful. They considered all the different input to life. And the second thing about them was that they were Christians. And one way of explaining that is to say that they saw the spiritual dimension of life. We generally, human beings, see the material side of life. We're materialists. If we see it, taste it, see it, feel it, if we can measure it or throw it or something, we know it exists. But they saw this unseeable side of life, the spiritual side, and they recognized that it's real and it's true and it's there. And they could see this and expressed it in their writings. And their writings express the spiritual side of life. They deal with issues of the soul, with values and with beliefs and with good and bad, and things that move a person one way or another in life, and the real serious decisions of life. And their writings basically do the third thing that I admired about them: stimulate your imagination. They emphasize the imagination as an important element of life and being a Christian. And what they did, because they were emphasized language and words and writing and thoughts and putting that together and making it understandable, they applied that to their writing to stimulate your imagination to see the unseen world, which you need imagination to see. So when they create orcs and ents and dwarfs and forces of evil and what is the name of the Mount Doom? Is it Mount Doom in the trilogy? I have to go back now and look. They have hobbits, and they have the good side, and they have the good creatures, and they have the evil creatures, and they create them in a way that stimulates your imagination. It makes you identify with them and see them positively and negatively. And then it simulates the battle between good and evil. And it shows that it's real, and it shows that exactly what's happening in life today. And in life today, if you could take a pair of 3D glasses, 5D glasses actually, you see width and height and depth, and we see time as the 4th dimension. But if you could see the 5th dimension through 3D glasses, you'd see this spiritual 3D. You'd see this spiritual world all around us, and the battle of good and evil going on that tempt you one way or another, warn you one way or another. And as it says in Scripture, we battle not against flesh and blood and forces of this world, but we battle against rulers of darkness and evil forces in high places. And that's what Tolkien, through his literature and through his writing, stimulates your imagination to be able to see the real things of the spiritual world. And it allows you to see things like heaven and the beauty of God's creation around you, and see that it's not just something that happened and is by chance, but it's actually the artist, God, the artist and the creator, that creates the picture, like that cherry tree there, and creates the picture of an ocean, a beautiful ocean, or a mountain lake, or a mountain scenery, and everything like that you see around you. And it allows you to experience that that's a person demonstrating his goodness, as opposed to just a material thing that you happen to like.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, for me, being an engineer and growing up scientifically with formulas and numbers and trigonometric shapes and everything, for me, that whole dimension was really important, because it brought me out of the study of the technical details that I could put together a structure or something like that, and showed me the world of imagination, and allowed me to see in Scripture the things that the Apostle Paul, the Apostle John especially, and the prophets of the Old Testament put in Scripture, and allows you to see those things through your imagination. Tolkien stimulated the imagination, and he gave it to us to use to understand spiritual things, because he was a Christian and he was an intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also a member, as I said the first time, he was a member of the Inklings, which was a group of men that met at the Eagle and the Child in Oxford, in England. And they were all professors at Oxford University in different departments, but they'd get together and talk about their writings and critique their writings and stimulate one another in those things. A number of them wrote fantasy, and they'd stimulate each other's imaginations and critique each other's writings, and how you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way. But it was the kind of dialogue that doesn't pull people down, but lifts them up and gives them great thoughts. And if anything's important in life, it's use your mind first, know that there's a soul and you have a spiritual dimension, you have a spirit, and the spiritual side of life, seek to understand that. And then use your imagination as you see this spiritual side of life, the imagination that comes from understanding Scripture and what it really means when it talks about heaven and hell and places like that. So I hope this is helpful to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Grandpa read me The Hobbit for the first time when I was 4 or 5. And that was a bad decision, because I had nightmares for years about Gollum and about like the caves of the Misty Mountains. So if you'd asked me when I was 8 what I thought of The Hobbit, I would have said that I hated it and never wanted to ever read it again. But many years later, I read it again, and the trilogy, when I think I read it for the first time when I was in college by myself, reading it by myself for the first time. And I finished all 4 books, and I cried, because I'd never read anything like it in my whole life, and I was a huge reader, and I also loved to write already at that age. So to have something like that hit me so hard and so deep was really fascinating. So it is interesting to think about why that is, and I think one reason is his language, and he is a beautiful writer. And I think the special thing about Tolkien is that he captures the tension between joy and sorrow and dark and light in a way that just leaves you longing for just the deep things of life and the deep things of the world. And at that point in my life, I'd never read anything that captured that. I felt that in my own heart, but nothing I'd ever read, not even really the Bible at that point, I have to be honest. had ever touched that part of me. The way that he could write about things that were so profoundly difficult and sad, but also find the turn of the beautiful in them really impacted me. And vice versa, things that were beautiful, but that if looked at in a different light or if turned over in a different way were heartbreaking. Just changed how I read, it changed how I saw the world, and it opened my eyes to the message of the gospel in a completely different way. And I don't think I realized at the time, but I know that the Lord used Tolkien's work to start drawing me slowly to himself. I wasn't really walking with the Lord when I first started reading the books, and he began to change my heart in big ways in that same time in my life, and I know he used those for part of that. So I think I've read the whole set. I've probably read The Hobbit 6 or 7 times, and I've read the trilogy 3 or 4 times. I worked on the Tolkien publishing project at Houghton Mifflin Company in Boston. I even had a big cutout of Aragorn in my room, a movie promo cutout. And just took a lot of joy working in that space. I did jacket copy for some of the Tolkien publications that were coming out at that time, and I just was like pinching myself that I got to work on something that I had loved so much. And then fast forward to getting to be a teacher at Rivendell was just crazy. So that's a few of the ways that Tolkien has impacted my life, and especially The Hobbit, There and Back Again, which I think sums up many, many people's journeys in life.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot about J.R.R. Tolkien and how he's affected people's lives today. I hope that this can help you next time that you read The Hobbit or any of his books to just remember that he's writing these for a greater good. And we should always look into those 5D glasses and look for that 5th dimension in our worlds and apply the lessons from his books to our lives. You are my